Hello, everyone. It is me. I'm a nerd politics, and today we are speaking on the 2024 polls. This is the August version. We are less than 100 days out from the November election come this year, 2024. And obviously, I don't know if there's been really any big updates, but there's definitely a little bit of small changes. Um, First of all, I put up, all these things. We got JD Vance in here. We got token white guy because Kamala Harris. I actually said camel in there instead of Kamala. I got to fix that real quick. Oops. Oopsie doops. Kamala Harris and token white guy because chances are is that being she has enough delegates to become the presidential nominee, she's going to pick someone who has a little bit more favorability than her, and I have token white guy because that's likely to be it. And then we have RFK Jr. with Nicole A. Shanahan, who is a former Republican attorney. So I'm looking at the New York Times for my information to get an insight. I was looking at 538, but it was giving me a hard time. It wasn't loading, so I don't know what the hell's wrong with that. Um, and also, I put Trump instead of Trump. I am losing my mind. I actually just got done with a gaming video before this on my other channel, and I've raged for a couple minutes here. But I'm not gonna yapper, even though that's what I do. But I'm gonna put in the safe states here for Mr. Donald Trump, and then we'll get into everything else here in just a minute. Um, Safe states, yep. All right, here as well as safe districts. So 126. I'm gonna get Kamala's strong states, which is her home state in California, Oregon, Washington, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, um, First District of Maine, Rhode Island, Maryland, Delaware, and Hawaii, as well as DC. So 120, 126. Obviously, I don't think RFK is going to obviously get around to getting anything on the electoral vote, but definitely more on the popular vote. He shows similar to Ross Perot and, in popularity and obviously into a third party aspect. And I'm going to get to him in a minute because he makes this debate a lot more weirder coming August here. And obviously, some added strong states I'm going to put in here is Iowa. We saw in the primaries he actually just destroyed everyone in the primaries. I think Iowa is safe to say is a Republican state, as well as Florida and Texas. I think that's safe to say. I think a lot of people can agree with me on that. Also, I forgot to put Illinois. I think Illinois is going to be a strong Democratic state here. And let's talk about some other things here. So I don't really want to pay money. I don't. It makes you do this thing where it's like, enjoy unlimited access. Just pay $2. That's all you need. But I'm not going to pay $2 because that's stupid. So it says Harris and Trump. So the polls that lead, based off what the New York Times says, it has Trump at 48% and Harris at 47% in the national average polling. Here's the weird thing: is if you add Kennedy into the list, it puts them at a tie where Harris is maybe so ever slightly higher, maybe at like 0.1% over Trump, so 44.1 and 44 for Trump. But Kennedy is at 5. So what the weird thing is that Kennedy averages out a lot of these because you have to understand Kamala Harris doesn't have a base to start off of. Trump does from the Joe Biden debate and obviously from his former presidency. But the thing is that Donald Trump doesn't have a base when it goes to debates with Kamala Harris. They have not debated each other, and in recent news shows that they're kind of avoiding each other because one wants to do a debate and the other doesn't, based off of ABC and Fox News. So the problem is, since they're avoiding each other, they don't have a base on the issues to speak about and debate about. RFK Jr. doesn't have that thing either because he hasn't actually been to a actual debate because no other social media platform besides Fox News will actually give him that kind of attention or that kind of will to be on a stage. Fox News would obviously let him do that. They've let him go on there publicly to speak about the problems with the Democratic and Republican Party. So, in one way, RFK has a better stance because one debate would allow him to have a strong base stance if the rest of them would debate. If that makes sense, it doesn't. I totally get that. What I'm trying to get to the point here is that since Kamala Harris doesn't have a very good strong point here, and either does Trump in the debating format because they've never actually stood together in the same room, it gives more people the feeling that maybe the independent candidate is better. RFK Jr. actually made a video about something on a shorts on like how he could win the election possibility, right? Because think back to 1992 with Ross Perot. If you come to think about it, there were more people in that timeline in 1992 that wanted to vote for Ross Perot, more than half. Let's say, because right now, if you're looking at it, 22% say they're Democratic all the way, 23% say they're Republican all the way. But then you have the 51% right now that says they're independent, guaranteed. The problem with that is that out of the 51%, more than half of them, so around 30% of them, maybe 35, are too scared and fear that if they vote for the independent candidate, they don't know the outcome that it'll come to on the United States with the current issues we have in our society, the border, with our national debt, with our healthcare rates, and so much more. The differences in equality. There's a lot of problems in the United States that face right now, and obviously wars around the world. We don't know how an independent candidate would face up against the current problem with Iraq, the current problem with Ukraine and Russia, the current problem with Palestine and Israel, or the probably future coming up problem with China and Taiwan. We don't really know the instance of problems that could be solved under an independent administration compared to a Democratic or a Republican administration. So it's the same thing to an extent here, where with those numbers that I found from RFK Jr.'s website, and they kind of average out, it's an independent website, of course. RFK proves that if he could at least get 34% of the electoral vote, he would win in a guaranteed. And that's some of the states like California, Idaho, Utah, Florida, most of the East, obviously, like his home state, Massachusetts. He would have to win a lot of those states, which he's probably not going to, but he would have a strong lead if he did so, but only if independent voters were not feared to vote for him. So that's why it makes it more stronger on his baseline, but only out in fear does it maybe have a possibility that these people have a better chance than he does. All in all, it's a weird kind of story here. I was just going to address that because I found it quite strange. I quite found it find it strange. The words are hard. Words are not very easy, it seems. Anyways, with Kennedy included, I'm looking at Wisconsin. It says Wisconsin is tied in terms of 49-49 for both Trump and Kamala Harris. Trump went to the Republican convention was in Wisconsin, and he obviously got a very big roar out of that. And he's obviously had a couple of rallies there that have roared big time as well over in Wisconsin. So what I'm saying is that I don't think that's true. Now, of course, he did have a recent interview, something to do with the African American, like an African American vote, pretty much. And where Trump said, well, she isn't black. She identifies as it now. And, that some people think that it came off as offensive or racist, but really it's not. Because she isn't African American. She is Hindu Asian American. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that she's not African American. And even if she was, she would be a backstabber to the community, because we know that as an attorney, she was one of the worst attorneys in San Francisco, in California, probably in the United States. there's probably been worse, but she's up there. She didn't make it in the top three for best, but probably the top three for worst, because out of the thousands of African Americans that she incarcerated them for longer than they were supposed to be in there, and she incarcerated them for marijuana, which is not even that big of a deal. Maybe it was at that point, but not nearly as big as murder cases, charges. Like, those things are way bigger, way more bigger in society today. And of course, when she was attorney, she just got rid of it. Didn't want to do anything with it. Not her problem, but marijuana was her problem. So obviously, that doesn't help her case. I don't think Kamala Harris has a baseline where she can get the attention of African American voters to vote for her the same way that Trump can, even though Trump has his cons and his pros, the same way that everyone else has their pros and cons. Kamala Harris doesn't have that. To be fair here, Kamala Harris might have a little bit stronger, maybe, but Trump has a baseline from him being president in 2016 election when he won it, in 2017 becoming the president, of course. But I'm going to go off of what is likely here. So the likely states I'd say for Kamala Harris would be most likely New Jersey, most likely Maine as a whole state, most likely New York. Trying to see here. I'm gonna say most likely Colorado. I think that's a good one. And then yeah, and then for the most likely for Donald Trump, I'm gonna say Georgia. Although that could change. That interview I just talked about could have definitely had effect on that. But I'm gonna leave it at where it is because that's what every other stat poll is saying here. Um, and with Wisconsin, I don't think it's likely here, but I definitely do say for North Carolina and Arizona that it's definitely more likely. Um, Obviously, as I load these back in here, as I load them back in, Michigan, yeah, Michigan's saying 50% for 51-49. Sorry, 51-49. So I'm gonna put this as a maybe state, and I'm also gonna put Pennsylvania as a maybe state just based off of what it says here. And I'm gonna put Wisconsin as a going in the direction of Trump. That already puts him at 289, so we're good there. I'm going to put Ohio as a safe state just because JD Vance, although JD Vance is not liked, I personally thought that Ramaswamy or Ben Carson would have been better, but JD Vance he has said some off he's made some off like things for the Republican Party that don't make a lot of sense. But he's obviously doing better than Mike Pence, so let it be better than that, of course. Um, and then here it says Nevada is in the direction of Trump. It's currently at 49%. So a little bit higher because Kamala Harris is at 47. So that's a little bit of a strong point to have. I'd say, in the direction for Kamala Harris is definitely New Mexico. Because you have to remember is that Kamala Harris is doing better than Biden was in the polls, but because she doesn't have a base, it's not really understood, where that takes us. I'd say also in the direction for Kamala Harris is the second district of Nebraska. I'd have to say, Minnesota has always been kind of janky. It hasn't been a Republican state since 1972, and it was nearly closely won by the Republicans in 2016 with Donald Trump back in 2016, of course. And it's been almost won by Republicans a couple of times in, 2008 and 2004 and 2000 and, a little bit before that. So it's based off of what Minneapolis, the most democratic city of Minnesota, really has to say about it. But if I'm going off of what's being said right now, I'd say likely we'll go to in the direction of we'll go in the direction of Kamala Harris here and whoever the vice president is by that timeline. So that really leaves us with Virginia and New Hampshire. And let me restart the page here. Let me get a little restart and going. So it's not saying anything for Virginia. It says not enough polling. but other places are saying like it's a Trump 1% up, and that's what I'm going to go off of. That could change, so I'm going to say that could change at any moment. Virginia hasn't been a Republican state since 2004, so obviously it's a who's ever game for these three states. But really, if you're going to think strongly about it, is that Trump might not win Virginia, but he will probably win Pennsylvania and Michigan if a debate happens. If the debate doesn't happen, it doesn't make Kamala Harris stronger, but it doesn't necessarily make Trump stronger either. And next we have New Hampshire, and New Hampshire is still polling for Kamala Harris at 2% higher than Trump. So I'm gonna say it is whoever's game at New Hampshire. I think most of the East, far East, is going to be Democratic for sure. But that's just how things are looking. But we have a 325, 213. That is what I'm getting based off of what the New York Post says, what I'm getting off of 538 and from 270. But mainly the New York Post for today. But of course, if you did enjoy, please like and subscribe. If you want to leave your comments or concerns or whatever you want to think about or whatever your opinion is, please leave it in the description down below. Also, I need to mention this because I get called out for it, and I swear to God, it's not me. A lot of your comments, negative or positive about my videos or whatever, you post them and they get deleted or they get blacklisted. And I am telling you right now, I go through all my comments, and unless you're saying slurs or if you're saying stuff that I'm not really sure has meaning, I'm not deleting them. I'm not getting rid of them. It's on YouTube's side. If YouTube sees it and is seeing it as a concern, that's not me. There was a video I made a week ago or so that had like 75 comments on it, but only 20 of them were shown. I am not going through my comments and deleting them. I'm not doing that Mr. Beast bull crap. I'm simply trying to understand what YouTube is getting at, because YouTube almost demonetized that video, which is weird because I don't have ads anyways. I don't have very many ads, but they tried demonetizing that video based on what the comments are. And I'm sorry if your comment didn't get shown, but I am not purposely going out there to attack you. But I'm going to try to figure out what YouTube is doing. But if you did enjoy and want to leave your response, please do so with all due respect. And of course, until then, I will see you all in the next political video. Peace out, everyone.